dapat po munang alamin or matukoy ang pangunahing problema ng bansa upang mapagtuunan ng pansin at mabigyan ng solusyon.
We should have specific goals, do research, and make a policy that is fair for everyone.
Walang problema sa pulisiya. Iayos lang ang pagpapatupad.
Bago patubas ang batas, pag-aralan muna gusto ng government.
Two things, clarity and execution. Both, you need the communication and monitoring. As simple as that.
Mandato ng Philippine Institute for Development Studies o PIDS na gumawa ng mga pag-aaral at pananaliksik ng mga polisiya at programa ng pamahalaan at magbigay ng rekomendasyon sa mga mambabatas sa pagbabalangkas ng mga polisiyang makakatulong sa ating bansa. Sinusulong ng aming ahensya ang evidence-based policy making upang bigyan diin ang kahalagahan ng polisiya na batay sa datos at policy research na sumusuri sa tunay na kalagayan ng ating mga komunidad. Napakahalaga ng policy research, lalo na sa mga panahong dumadaan sa krisis ang ating bansa.
Kapag pulisiya ay pinag-aralan, susulong ang bayan.
In need of references for your research? Do you want a digital library that you can access for free anytime and anywhere? You don't have to look far. SERPI is here for you. SERPI is an online database of socioeconomic materials produced by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, government agencies, research and academic institutions, and international organizations based in the Philippines. It is the country's first online repository of socioeconomic information, created for policymakers and development practitioners, researchers, educators, and students. To access SERPI, just visit the PIDS website and click the SERPI widget under the Databases tab, or type serp-p.pids.gov.ph. SERPI has a wide variety of materials such as journal articles, books, research papers, working papers, policy notes, audiovisual materials, and more. As of 2022, SERPI has more than 60 partner institutions contributing knowledge resources to the database. SERPI provides a comprehensive coverage of references encompassing 22 research themes: labor and education, gender and development, poverty, technology and innovation, trade and industry, and many more. On the enhanced website of SERPI, you can filter your research by keyword or author, publication type, research theme, or year published, all at the same time. SERPI has more than 7,000 publications and audiovisual materials that you can access and download for free. What are you waiting for? Visit SERPI now. Socioeconomic Research Portal for the Philippines, innovating knowledge exchange and policy research.
So what is PIDS? For over 40 years, the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS, has been the country's foremost socioeconomic think tank. It conducts rigorous and objective policy research and analyses that help the government in crafting relevant policies, plans, and programs in support of the country's long-term vision and development goals. PIDS pursues its mandate through three basic programs: research, dissemination, and outreach. Through its research program, PIDS identifies and prioritizes studies, develops proposals, and conducts research on priority areas. The results of these studies are then disseminated through different platforms: publications, online resources, PIDS Corner, seminars, and the Development Policy Research Month, or DPRM, held every September. To shed light on key policy issues, the advice and expertise of the Institute's research fellows are also sought by policymakers, government agencies, private sector, and civil society. Since 1977, PIDS has completed numerous policy studies on a wide range of development topics. This brand of service has then translated to policies and programs that have improved the lives of every Filipino. Philippine Institute for Development Studies, service through policy research.
Dapat po munang alamin or matukoy ang pangunahing problema ng bansa upang mapagtuunan ng pansin at mabigyan ng solusyon.
We should have specific goals, do research, and make a policy that is fair for everyone.
Walang problema sa polisiya. Iayos lang ang pagpapatupad.
Bago patubas ang batas, pag-aralan muna gusto ng government.
Two things, clarity and execution. Both, you need the communication and monitoring. As simple as that.
Mandato ng Philippine Institute for Development Studies o PIDS na gumawa ng mga pag-aaral at pananaliksik ng mga polisiya at programa ng pamahalaan at magbigay ng rekomendasyon sa mga mambabatas sa pagbabalangkas ng mga polisiyang makakatulong sa ating bansa. Sinusulong ng aming ahensya ang evidence-based policy making upang bigyan diin ang kahalagahan ng polisiya na batay sa datos at policy research na sumusuri sa tunay na kalagayan ng ating mga komunidad. Napakahalaga ng policy research, lalo na sa mga panahong dumadaan sa krisis ang ating bansa.
Kapag pulisiya ay pinag-aralan, susulong ang bayan.
In need of references for your research? Do you want a digital library that you can access for free anytime and anywhere? You don't have to look far. SERPI is here for you. SERPI is an online database of socioeconomic materials produced by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, government agencies, research and academic institutions, and international organizations based in the Philippines. It is the country's first online repository of socioeconomic information, created for policymakers and development practitioners, researchers, educators, and students. To access SERPI, just visit the PIDS website and click the SERPI widget under the Databases tab, or type serp-p.pids.gov.ph. SERPI has a wide variety of materials such as journal articles, books, research papers, working papers, policy notes, audiovisual materials, and more. As of 2022, SERPI has more than 60 partner institutions contributing knowledge resources to the database. SERPI provides a comprehensive coverage of references encompassing 22 research themes: labor and education, gender and development, poverty, technology and innovation, trade and industry, and many more. On the enhanced website of SERPI, you can filter your research by keyword or author, publication type, research theme, or year published, all at the same time. SERPI has more than 7,000 publications and audiovisual materials that you can access and download for free. What are you waiting for? Visit SERPI now. Socioeconomic research portal for the Philippines, innovating knowledge exchange and policy research.
So what is PIDS? For over 40 years, the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS, has been the country's foremost socio-economic think tank. It conducts rigorous and objective policy research and analyses that help the government in crafting relevant policies, plans, and programs in support of the country's long-term vision and development goals. PIDS pursues its mandate through three basic programs: research, dissemination, and outreach. Through its research program, PIDS identifies and prioritizes studies, develops proposals, and conducts research on priority areas. The results of these studies are then disseminated through different platforms, publications, online resources, PIDS Corner, seminars, and the Development Policy Research Month, or DPRM, held every September. To shed light on key policy issues, the advice and expertise of the Institute's research fellows are also sought by policymakers, government agencies, private sector, and civil society. Since 1977, PIDS has completed numerous policy studies on a wide range of development topics. This brand of service has then translated to policies and programs that have improved the lives of every Filipino. Philippine Institute for Development Studies, service through policy research.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the virtual book launch of Critical Issues in the Philippine Digital Economy, the newest book of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS. co-published with the International Development Research Center, or IDRC. I'm Mai Lagman, your host and moderator. So this launch is part of our PIDS webinar series, a platform where we feature our publications and insights from our researchers and development partners in government, academia, private sector, and civil society to promote informed public discourse on development issues. And this event is our contribution to the National ICT Month celebration. So to officially start our book launch, let us first hear some inspiring words from the President of PIDS, Dr. Aniceto C. Orbeta Jr. Let us give him a virtual round of applause. Dr. Orbeta.
Thanks, Mai. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and participants, and welcome to the virtual book launch of our book titled Critical Issues in the Philippine Digital Economy. First, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the following officials: National Economic Development Authority Assistant Secretary Florentine Igtiben, Department of Interior and Local Government Assistant Secretary Esther Aldana, Department of Information and Communications Technology Director Mario Puñado, House of Representatives Deputy Secretary General Romulo Miral, Securities and Exchange Commission's Philippines Assistant Director Nolivin Ermitaño, and National Telehealth Center Director Raymond Francis Sarmiento, Philippine Exports Confederation Vice President Maria Florisa Leong, Australian Services Roundtable Director Jane Drake Brockman, Action for Economic Reforms President Jessica Cantos, Philippine Business for Social Progress Executive Director Elvin Ivanoi. Apart from those who join us via Zoom, let me also greet our audience watching through the PIDS and SERPI Facebook pages. Today, we are launching our newest book, Critical Issues in the Philippine Digital Economy, co-published with the International Development Research Center, or IDRC. This book is a compilation of extensive research and insights into the complex and dynamic landscape of the Philippine digital economy. As we celebrate the National ICT Month this July, we deem it relevant to launch this book to coincide and support this observance. Digital media and online transactions have become part of our daily lives. The number of internet users ballooned over the last few years, according to the Meltwater and We Are Social's Digital 2023 report. The Philippines has 85.16 million internet users, equivalent to 73.1% of our population. It added that Filipino spends an average of over 9 hours online daily, making us the third highest country in internet consumption. This estimate proves that we have vast capacity and opportunity for digital innovation and economic expansion. This is made possible with the strong government support and a cooperative and agile business sector that enabled Philippine digital sector to contribute significantly to the country's economy. According to data from the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, the digital economy in 2022 exceeded 2.2 trillion pesos, constituting 9.4% of the nation's gross domestic product, or GDP. Among the digital transactions, the largest portion amounting to 1.6 trillion pesos, or 77.2%, was attributed to the digital enabling infrastructure, primarily telecommunications and professional or business services. Additionally, e-commerce and digital media contributed 20% and 2.8% respectively to the overall digital economy. When countries are increasingly heavily dependent on a rapidly evolving technology, comprehending the complex web of the digital economy has become essential. Our newest book can help us do that. Each chapter offers extensive research and valuable insights into significant facets of the digital economy. By exploring these essential topics, the book enables us to envision and actualize a digital society that fosters upliftment and benefits all. This book, created through the collaboration of PIDS researchers, aimed to empower policymakers, researchers, entrepreneurs, and citizens to make informed decisions and find innovative solutions in a dynamic digital landscape. I congratulate the volume editors, Drs. Connie Dacuycuy and Ramonette Serafica, for putting the various chapters together into a cohesive and comprehensive volume. I also wish to thank the following researchers for their contributions to the volume: Ramonette Serafica and Queen Sel Uren for their research on digital platforms and online work, Aiken Larissa Cerso for her study on regulatory reforms, Francis Mark Kimba, Mark Anthony Baral, and Jean Clarice Claros for their research on contribution to financial technology, Marie Ballesteros and Jenica Ancheta for their research on smart cities, Connie Bayudan Dacuycuy and Laura Bahe for their research on crowd work, Paul John Peña and Vince Isiniao for their research on platform work for women in rural communities, Aubrey Tabuga and Carlos Caballero for their study on the internet connectivity of households, and again, Connie Dacuycuy and Limaros Insay for the online marketplace research, and finally, Jane Carlos Vito Katigbak and Jill Angli Bacamas for their research on e-commerce adoption of women-led micro, small, and medium enterprises. Let me also acknowledge the PIDS Research Information Department, led by Dr. Silas Siar, for handling the production of this volume. Special thanks goes to Giselle Manuel, Mariam Tobio, Islami Rubles, and Winilin Asuncion of the Publications and Circulation Division. Finally, I express my heartfelt gratitude to IDRC for its unwavering partnership and support throughout this journey. The IDRC's commitment to advancing knowledge and fostering sustainable development has brought this book to fruition. I encourage you to actively participate into this discussion and work together for a prosperous, equitable, and sustainable digital society. Thank you very much. I now give back the floor to our moderator.
Thank you very
Recording
much.
in progress.
Thank you very much, Dr. Orbeta. Joining us on this momentous event too is a representative of our co-publisher, the International Development Research Center. Friends, let us all welcome IDRC Senior Program Specialist, Dr. Arjan de Haan. Dr. Arjan, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Smiley. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
And thank you so much, Dr. Orbeta. It's a great pleasure and honor to re-engage with PIDS again. I visited, I worked with your colleagues, your predecessors, quite many years ago now, and the partnership, indeed, as you mentioned, with PIDS has been wonderful, and congratulations on all the work. For the people who don't know IDRC in the audience, the International Development Research Center is a Canadian organization, part of Canada's International Development Program that focus on supporting research on research like that of PIDS. The research that we support is high quality academic research, of course, but it particular focus is applied research, as PIDS so well demonstrates. It is research that is done directly with policymakers, with commercial organizations, with a wide range of stakeholders, and the way that PIDS does this, including at a meeting today, is really wonderful. So again, Dr. Beda, thank you so much for the long-term partnership, and congratulations on your wonderful work. I was enjoying even the beginning of this webinars. The way you present the work is really so inspiring. From the IDRC side, the background to this work, apart from the long-term partnership that we've had with PIDS, has been on a focus on women's economic empowerment, in which we've programmed globally, and it it over the last 10, 20 years. We've seen enormous progress in gender equality, but it's always been remarkable in the negative sense, how persistent barriers are for women, young people, different groups, very persistent barriers in economic opportunities. So my colleagues, this was Gillian Dowie that Connie will have engaged with closely a couple of years back, started a program of research across the Asia region that looked at those persistent barriers in new economic opportunities, and of course the digital economy was central to this. So there was a cohort of projects that looked at how women, different groups, and in the case of the PIDS work, as this Dr. Beta mentioned, also making sure that the research looked at women in both urban and rural areas where those barriers to participation are very distinct. So there's a set of research projects that again across the Asia region that looked at how women participate in those new opportunities, particularly the digital economy, what the specific barriers are to those different groups, and with that, and that's where the PIDS research has really done remarkable work, immediately also not just describing those barriers, but also working with stakeholders to see how those barriers can be addressed, how they can be addressed, what experience exists with policies that help enhance those opportunities. So the study by PIDS is part of that larger cohort, which as I said, was developed with my colleague Gillian Dowie, who since moved to another part of IDRC, and it's really, I would had the privilege of looking at the different parts of the research since over the last 2 years, and this has really been path-breaking work. The entire set of studies, the collaboration of PIDS with organizations in India and elsewhere in Asia. So the papers that have come out, the book that is launched today, really gives such an important overview of the specific lessons on those economic opportunities in that digital economy in the Philippines. Of course, the Philippines has the lessons from each country are very distinct, and these are very well described for in your study. The research that has been produced, and Dr. Beta mentioned the large number of researchers that have engaged in this is really high quality, the research of the highest possible standard. And again, as I said before, the way that research has engaged with the various stakeholders, government officials, people in the colleagues in the private sector, many of whom are here today, and it's really wonderful to see that broad interest, how that research has engaged with the stakeholders and the specific directions that it gives to helping to understand that new sector in the economy in the Philippines, and the policies that need to be in place to support, to make sure, as Dr. Beta said, the policies that need to be in place to make sure that all groups can benefit from those opportunities, really remarkable. So once again, it's just like a privilege to be here, though virtually. I wish we could meet in person, of course. Congratulations to PIDS, congratulations to all the researchers, and I just look forward to hear the presentation of the research. Thank you, Dr. Beta. Back to you, Meili.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arjan, for your message. So our newest book, Critical Issues in the Philippine Digital Economy, is a collection of studies that assess the digital economy in the Philippines and present strategies for leveraging digital technologies to achieve inclusive socio-economic development. Now we'd like to show you the volume editors and chapter authors of the book, namely Dr. Connie Bayudan Dacuycuy, Dr. Ramonette B. Serafica, Ms. Jenica Ancheta, Ms. Jill Angeli Bacasmas, Ms. Laura Cruz Baje, Dr. Marife M. Ballesteros, Mr. Mark Anthony Baral, Mr. Carlos Caballero, Ms. Jean Clarice Carlos, Mr. Jovito Jose Katigbak, Ms. Queen Cel Ore, Mr. Paul John Peña, Dr. Francis Mark Kimba, Attorney Aiken Larissa Oterzo, Ms. Lei Marus Sinsay, Dr. Aubrey D. Tabuga, and Mr. Vince Eisen Siyao. So later, our chapter authors will be joining us for our open forum. But for now, we will be hearing the book summary from the volume editors, Dr. Connie Bayudan Dacuycuy and Dr. Ramonette B. Serafica. So Dr. Dacuycuy is a senior research fellow at PIDS. She holds a PhD in economics from Kyoto University in Japan. Her research works are in the fields of household, family and gender issues, poverty analysis, and applied economic modeling. Today, she is joined by the co-volume editor, Dr. Serafica. Dr. Ramonette B. Serafica is also a senior research fellow at PIDS. She has a PhD in economics from the University of Hawaii and has conducted research on services policy, regulation, and trade. Dr. Connie and Dr. Monette, over to you, please.
Hi, Mai. Thanks for the introduction. Are we supposed to start the presentation now?
Yes, sir. Our team will be showing the slides. Thank you.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the chapter authors, Monette and I will provide a synthesis of the book chapters, and we will do this in 3 parts. So the first part, we will provide the landscape. So essentially, we will be answering the question, where are we? And then the second part, we will synthesize the evidence. Essentially, we will be answering the question, what are the critical issues? And then the third part, we will summarize the ways forward, essentially answering the question, what can be done? So on the next slide, next slide, please. So we define what is digital economy, and we borrowed from Book and Hicks that says that digital economy is the part of the economic output that is derived solely or primarily from digital technologies with a business model based on digital goods or services. So on the left side, there's a chart there, and you can see that there are 3 ovals that are inside of each other, which is core, narrow, and broad. So the core would be, it consists of IT, software, telecoms, hardware. And then for the narrow definition, it would be the core. And then it also includes digital services and the platform economy. And then the broader digital economy would be sectors like, of course, core plus narrow, and then including sectors like e-businesses, e-health, e-commerce, agriculture, and Industry 4.0. It's important to emphasize that digital technologies and services are a means to achieve higher social goals. So ICT mediates development, and this is recognized in national blueprints, roadmaps, and plans. For example, the Pagtanaw 2050, it outlines the strategic plans to harness science and technology as tools towards innovation in products, processes, and organization. The former DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña articulated that the Pagtanaw 2050 is actually a guiding principle that will enable the science community to assist in shaping the Philippines as a progressive archipelagic nation. There are 2 important observations to note here. The first one would be ICT brought opportunities, and these opportunities comes in the form of social and financial prospects. It has become abundant. It has transformed the interaction and behavior of people, business, and consumers. Work opportunities have also become ubiquitous through labor platforms, and essentially diverse goods and services abound because of goods and asset platforms. Second observation would be, even though there are opportunities, there are critical issues and challenges, and these challenges, some of these challenges are organic to innovation itself. organic in the sense that innovation is challenging conventional ways of doing businesses and conducting the work and in conducting and organizing work. And then the second would be the pace of innovation in the sense that essentially innovation is outpacing regulations, challenging legal and regulatory frameworks, and rendering ICT infrastructures inadequate. So the question is, where are we? In the next slide, we note that the economic contribution of the digital economy in the Philippines is significant. In terms of gross value added contribution, in 2018, it garnered 1.82 trillion pesos, and then in 2021, it's around 1.87 trillion. That's around 10% of the country's GDP, and this is based on the PSA data. In terms of employment contribution, the sector accounts for around 13% of the country's total employed population, which is 15 years old and above. And this potentially excludes those that are working in the digital labor platforms, which the ASEAN had estimated to around 400,000. And most studies are saying that these figures are likely to grow. In the next slide, we also note that compared with its ASEAN neighbors, the country lags in various digital performance indicators. So you can see there on the table, the Philippines ranks low in digital indicators, including digital transformation and trade, connectivity, and innovation. And what is really surprising is that we are behind in almost all indicators relative to our ASEAN neighbors. So in addition, we also note the following trends. The first trend would be there are gaps in the number of service providers in the country. So based on the 2019 DICT's 2019 National ICT and Household Survey, out of the 2,617 sample barangays, only 54% had telecommunication companies. Only 36% had telecommunication towers, and around 20% had no internet service providers at all. And then there are also regional disparities in the types of services availed. So for example, NCR households mostly subscribe to fixed broadband, and ARM households mostly subscribe to mobile broadband. The second trend that we observe is that the country has very expensive ICT services. The average price of 1 gigabyte of data in the Philippines in 2022 was around $1.77. So that's around 90 pesos, give or take, depending on the exchange rate. And this is higher than most of our ASEAN peers, which ranges between 0.49 to $1.09. In fact, in 2021, we are third among the ASEAN countries with the most expensive ICT service across all ICT price baskets. The third observation that we note here is that there are few secured internet service in the country. So in 2010, the Philippines, alongside other ASEAN countries like Indonesia, Cambodia, Laos PDR, and Vietnam, had less than 5 secure internet servers per 1 million people. And then a decade after, the secured internet servers have grown in all ASEAN member states, but the growth in the Philippines had been the lowest. So just to give you an idea, the Philippines in 2010, we have 5 secured internet servers per 1 million people, and in 2020 we have 13. In Indonesia, they have 1.6 secured servers in 2010, and in 2020 it's around 1,877. And in Vietnam in 2010 they only have 2.3 secured servers per 1 million people, and in 2020 it's 105 secured servers. So in the next slide, we note that online services have flourished, but with varying degrees of success across sectors. So there are sectors that flourished, and these include e-commerce platforms like Lazada, Shopee, and these add value to customers through promotions, deals, and sales. The government even created e-commerce websites and mobile apps to support the enterprises. Ride-hailing and delivery services also flourished, because especially during the pandemic. And also resulting from the pandemic would be the use of digital payment platforms, which rose steeply because people were constrained people need to shift from offline to online transactions. And then in terms of work, more people are engaged in online work, as evidenced by the increase in freelancing revenues. And the gig economy in the country is actually predicted to continue to grow even after the pandemic, and is really expected to thrive. But there are some sectors like the smart city development that requires a more ambitious digital transformation. So currently, it needs institutional and systems-wide changes at the national and local levels. So on the next slide, we note that there are improvements on the fintech front, in the financial technology front, but much is still desired in financial inclusion. So one of the key improvement on fintech would be the BSP's initiative to make financial transactions interoperable. This includes the PesoNet and InstaPay that allow account holders to transfer funds, money to other banks and non-financial institutions rather. And these linkages allow customers to shop, pay bills, and send money conveniently. In terms of challenges, based on the BSP Financial Inclusion Survey, the proportion of bank adults increased. So from 2019 to 2020, it has increased by 10.5 percentage points, but still, it's still very low because it's still 30% in 2020. So there are the percentage of bank adults in 2020 is only at around 30%. On the next slide, we also note that the policy environment to support digital economic growth, digital economy growth continues to be strengthened. So there are laws on access to credits, funds for entrepreneurship, grants for startups, ease of doing business, and efficient government delivery. There are also laws on physical infrastructure, like for example, free internet access in public services and the national ID system. Laws also on developing human infrastructures, upskilling, reskilling, digital technology training. Laws on innovation, like the Philippine Innovation Act. There are also laws that penalize the abuse and misuse of ICT, including the Data Privacy Act and the Cybercrime Prevention Act. On the same slide, we also note that the government introduces different plans and programs to facilitate digital transformation. So with respect to plans and roadmaps, it's listed there: National Broadband Plan, plans related to e-commerce, and digital transformation roadmap. With respect to training, there are several. DICT has the Digital Jobs.ph project, which seeks to provide ICT-related training to enterprises, to entrepreneurs and freelancers. DTI also has a portfolio of training programs that provide on-demand training to enhance the MISMIS digital competencies in online selling. TESDA also have training programs that provide digital job seekers and business-minded people with digital skills training. DOST also has the LODI project that provides internship opportunities to DOST scholars taking up IT courses. With respect to infrastructures, there are also several programs. We have the Tech for Ed, which is essentially a shared service facility that provides ICT-enabled services in communities with minimal or no access to information and government services. We have the free Wi-Fi, we have the Ikadiwa. And then the DICT had launched the Digital Cities 2025 program, which promotes expanding the IT BPM hubs outside major urban centers to create more quality jobs. And then early 2023, the Paspas Pilipinas Paspas project was launched. Essentially, this is in line with the ease of doing business law. The project provided some LGUs with computer units with the aim of streamlining and digitizing business-related documents. And this initiative is seen to accelerate the establishment of EBOS, or the Electronic Business One-Stop Shops, or EBOS. In terms of financial inclusions, there's the national ID system, which is non-transferable and unique, and is viewed as a vehicle to facilitate the future rollout of state-led assistance. So On the next slide, we go to the question, what are the evidence? What are the critical issues? So we note that based on the book chapters, we're synthesizing this, despite enabling policies and programs, various factors impede the growth of the digital economy in the country. And there are 4 major themes that we have identified. One would be the poor digital infrastructures, which essentially constrain the development of smart cities and explains why the countries lag in digital transformation. The unreliability of connectivity and the high cost of internet also comes into play here. The lack of capital. So with respect to FinTech, one of the chapters identified limited capital available for startups, and another chapter had discussed that for smart cities development that require high development and operational costs, but there is limited technical and funding support at the local government. There's also the trust issues and data privacy concerns. So with respect to FinTech, distrust in using technologies, and in smart city development, safety and security issues on data and electronic transactions. So just an aside, the Data Privacy Act, we have the Data Privacy Act, and it has comprehensive guidelines for protecting personal information. But there are issues on the Data Privacy Act because accountabilities are unclear, and there's so many restrictions in terms of using the information, which can hamper its productive use. And that's also one articulation that can be found in one of the chapters. So the 4th would be lack of skills, knowledge, and talent. So this is a theme that has figured into almost 50% of the chapters in the book. Shortage of FinTech talent, for smart city development, the lack of skilled IT workers who will maintain and manage systems in smart cities. In general, low digital adaptability, and in platform work, poor negotiation skills and time management difficulties. In the countryside, inadequate written and communication skills that limit the participation among stay-at-home women, and the lack of knowledge on internet use that potentially limits e-commerce participation. So on the next slide, we note that there are socioeconomic divides and there are digital spatial divides, and both can amplify each other. So with respect to socioeconomic divide, we know that poor and non-poor, they have different levels of access, exposure, and capabilities. Thus, there is a difference in ICT utilization with respect to connecting to a mobile network, affording an internet-enabled device, or having the capacity to perform digital tasks. With respect to spatial divide, there is urban-rural disparity, regional disparity in terms of the available infrastructures, tools, and resources. So both divides are mutually reinforcing. Differences in ICT developments by geographical location can deepen socioeconomic divides. So for example, the non-poor can participate more in activities spurred by the ICT. Meanwhile, those who have the abilities to invest in ICT skills are drawn to migrate to develop cities, to big cities, leaving the less able in less connected parts of the country. So the lesson here is clear. People need to be on the right side of the divide to fully harness the benefits of the digital economy. And so some of the findings from the book chapters are flashed on the screen right now. So on the next slide, we note that the non-standard work arrangements can make achieving decent work for all more difficult. So jobs in the digital economy have risks, which affect the attainment of decent work. So when we say decent work, these are opportunities that are productive and deliver a fair income, security in the workplace, and social protection for families, better prospect for personal development and social integration. But there are some types of online work that are susceptible to exploitation and mental health risks. For example, exposure to harmful content. And then there is no employee relationship, workers are not covered and protected by the labor code. And this results in income insecurity, the lack of social protection, and absence of social dialogue and workers' representation. So zooming in on social protection issues, there's a chapter in the book that found that women are more likely to participate in platform work. Platform work is often done alongside non-platform work, which is typically the source of a platform worker's social protection. However, women's labor force participation is historically low, and many women are in the informal sector. In addition, coverage gaps in rural areas exist because most breadwinners are men, and therefore the finding is that these may deepen the gender disparity in access to social protection. In addition, the social security system has programs to cover voluntary contributors. So, but there are issues on the uptake of this program. One is budget constraint, because people, which go to the heart of short-term and intermittent nature of platform work. And then there's also the negative view of social protection. Most people think that the contribution is a tax that lowers take-home earning, and to some extent, there's also a problem of inadequate information of programs. So on the next slide, we note that the dissemination of programs and initiatives is lacking. Information to access financing and other support programs is important. And it's important because, for example, enterprises, they are vulnerable to shocks, and information can help them adjust. Joining an e-commerce platform has costs that reduce the profitability and sustainability of small businesses in online marketplaces. And information on training and funding support is crucial. So the findings in some of the chapters in the book are flashed on the screen, essentially articulating the lack of awareness of most stakeholders of efforts of the government and of the government. So at this point, I turn over the floor to Monette to conclude the discussion on critical issues and to provide the ways forward. Monette, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Connie. So good afternoon, everyone. To continue our discussions on the critical issues, there have been effective public-private partnerships, but the lack of coordination and collaboration among government entities results in the slow progress of digital transformation initiatives. In the case of smart city development, for example, inadequate collaboration has led to the lack of interoperability of systems. At the local level, systems work in silos, and each project has its own data collection and storage method. It is the national government's role to provide the standards, policies, and guidelines in PPPs, infrastructure development, financing, and knowledge sharing. Moreover, it should craft a regional or national framework. Without these, the efforts of the local governments will lack consistency and coherence. Next slide, please. There are also issues related to the inconsistent application or delayed implementation of laws. Ownership of mass media is restricted to Filipino citizens. Based on how mass media regulations are interpreted, there is a risk that all internet and informational platforms will be categorized as mass media. Currently, foreign platforms remain operational in the Philippines, but there is no guarantee that they will not be subjected to various penalties in the future. Weak and inconsistent enforcement increases uncertainty, while blanket prohibitions prevent foreign e-commerce and other digital platforms from entering and investing in the country. In addition, the implementation of laws promoting seamless transaction with the government has been slow, reducing the impact of initiatives and affecting the delivery of other digital services. Examples include the rollout of the National ID system and the Ease of Doing Business Act, requiring automation of business permitting and licensing systems. Next slide, please. So what can be done? I will now highlight the various interrelated recommendations. Next slide. The first is to strengthen the foundations of the digital economy. The government must continue policy and regulatory reforms and invest in specific network segments as needed to improve internet connectivity, especially outside urban centers. Venture capital to support startups must be made available. Funding and technical support must be provided to LGUs to assist in the development and operational costs of smart city development. And there's also a need to resolve the uncertainty in foreign ownership restrictions and remove barriers to entry and the expansion of digital platforms. Next, we must address the deficits in terms of human capital. Updating the curriculum offered in higher education institutions is critical for various careers in the tech sector, women's e-commerce participation, and smart cities requirements. General upgrading of skills is crucial. The government can build on the Philippine Skills Framework Initiative and explore the creation of a commission on lifelong learning to direct the country's strategies in line with the evolving needs of labor markets. Confidence in digital transactions and online market spaces is another important foundation of the digital economy. Alongside security and protection policies, regular information campaigns on fraudulent practices and cybercrime prevention strategies are helpful. The pool of cybersecurity experts could also be increased by providing scholarships and internships for IT courses. Next slide, please. The next set of recommendations focuses on digital policy governance. This applies to all types of initiatives. So digitalization requires visionary leadership at the national and local levels and the participation of various stakeholders. There must be a policy framework and strategic plan, especially for smart city development. Without a unifying framework, it has been largely supplier-driven or vendor-driven, exacerbating issues in data sharing, interoperability of systems, and data privacy and security. An integrated and holistic method is needed rather than the current siloed approach, where individual departments build ad hoc applications. Moreover, collaboration and coordination can help ensure coherence and transform urban areas into smart cities. The process is also very important. It must begin with an analysis of digital readiness. Then policy formulation or program design builds on the analysis and must involve consultations with various stakeholders. We must make sure that institutions or organizations tasked to implement policy must have the adequate human and technical capacities and the right incentives to be effective and efficient. They must be transparent and accountable. Then, to determine if a policy or program is on track to deliver expected outcomes, monitoring and evaluation is needed. Okay, so the final set of recommendations is about modernizing policies and the regulatory environment. There is a need to review restrictive regulations and enable regulators to adapt to new technologies, products, and business models. Given the pace of innovation, the rigidity of existing regulations, including mass media ownership restrictions, must be reviewed to balance the benefits against the risks. Regulatory sandboxes must be encouraged. Policies and regulations must be regularly evaluated. The regulator must understand the platform's characteristics as well as the business model and identify the specific public interest involved before imposing any new regulation if necessary. Since some platforms offer multiple products and services, and some form of digital regulation now occurs across different government agencies, a mechanism for collaborative regulation is useful. While there are regulators like the BSP and the SEC that can respond to innovation introduced in their sectors, other agencies may not enjoy the same level of authority, resources, or capacities. Legislative support is needed to enable regulators to adapt and to respond to potential harms without stifling innovation. There is a need to review current systems, social protection systems, to ensure decent work for online and other platform workers. This would involve updating the schemes to respond to the needs of new types of workers and work arrangements, and encouraging participation in social protection programs through simplified registration and more accessible payment systems. Policies and initiatives on public-private partnerships must be enhanced to consider the suitability of these arrangements for various technology and ICT projects, as well as education and training programs. Partnerships are also needed to raise awareness and promote digital adoption. There's also a need to improve data collection. Evidence-based research and evidence-informed policies rely on good quality data. It is important to ensure that definitions and terminologies are consistent. Also, consider the collection of data through innovative methodologies and the strategies to assess the contribution and needs of this emerging sector. Next slide. So we've given you a broad overview of the book, and we thank all the authors for their contribution. This is a compilation of the critical issues in various aspects of the digital economy. And as mentioned, each chapter assesses the current situation and identifies 3 to 5 critical issues and the ways to address them. So I think in the interest of time, I will stop here. And again, thank you so much to the various chapter authors. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your insightful presentation, Dr. Connie and Dr. Monette. So now that you have heard from the volume editors the overview along with the issues of and recommendations for the Philippine digital economy, we would like to know what you, our audience, think about the critical issues in the digital economy. So let's do a quick poll. And our question is, this is in Tagalog. This is, ano sa tingin mo ang pinakamatinding balakid kapag unlad ng digital economy sa bansa? In English, what is the most pressing issue in the development of the Philippine digital economy? So to answer the poll question, you can scan the QR code shown on the screen, or alternatively, you can click the link in the chat section in Zoom and select one from the choices that is shown in Mentimeter. For those who are watching us on Facebook, because we are also live streaming on Facebook, you can click the link to the poll question, which can be found in the comment section. So again, ang tanong natin ay, ano sa tingin mo ang pinakamatinding balakid sa pag-unlad ng digital economy sa bansa? So, team, may we see the initial result of the poll question? So, yeah. So now you can see among the 4 choices, which are connection sa internet or internet connectivity, capital or financial capital, pagpapabuti sa kakayahan at kaalaman sa teknolohiya or skills upgrading in digital literacy, and lastly, seguridad at kaligtasan or trust and security. So our audience our participants think that the internet connectivity is the most pressing issue in our digital economy. So muli, yung pagtitiyak ng koneksyon sa internet ang unang dapat tugunan o resolbahin na issue para umunlad ng ating digital economy sa bansa. So, thank you very much, everyone, for participating in our poll. So this would be interesting to know, as we listen also to the presentation of our discussants and participate in the open forum later. So now, let us hear from our invited discussant. So our first discussant is Ms. Emmy Versoza-Delfin. Director Delfin is currently heading the ICT Industry Development Bureau of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT. Ms. Delfin has exhibited her passion in creating positive changes in the lives of Filipinos through the ICT industry development programs in her 20 years of public service. So these include bringing digital jobs related to the information technology and business process management, or IT/BPM sector, to cities outside of Metro Manila, capacitating rural talents to get into online freelancing, and helping promote and develop Filipino startups and the startup ecosystem. So Director Delfin also leads the advocacy and awareness campaign on emerging technologies such as the blockchain and AI, and their impact and opportunities for Filipinos. So friends, let us all welcome Director Emmy Versoza-Delfin. Director Emmy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mai. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Of course, first of all, I'd like to greet and acknowledge the PIDS President, Dr. Aniceto Orbeta Jr., of course, from the International Development Research Center, Dr. Arjan, Haan, Senior Research Fellows and Volume Editors, Dr. Connie, Dacuycuy, and of course, hello, long time no see, Dr. Ramonette, Serafica. We used to be co-leads Philippine Development Plan under the Services Sector Committee. My fellow speakers and industry friends and partners, ILS, or Institute for Labor Studies, I'm not sure if Executive Director Jeanette Tamo is here, and another very close partner representing the countryside, I'm not sure if Dr. Joy Abeg is here, and FinTech Alliance.ph Chairperson, Mr. Lito, Villanueva. And of course, to everyone joining this webinar, magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. A very pleasant and insightful afternoon. And on behalf of the DICT, I would like to greet everyone a happy National ICT Month. So thank you, PIDS, for celebrating with us this month-long National ICT Month. First of all, I would like to thank and congratulate PIDS and the International Development Research Center for putting together this publication to further the developments of the Philippine digital economy. And we know that the book discussed the different facets of digital economy, but we would like to highlight those within our functions. And I know I saw the survey earlier about connectivity, so we have some updates on that. And so we would like to highlight lang those within our functions, particularly, of course, very important, infrastructure and connectivity. Second, digital literacy skills, because it's also a major mandate of the ICT, cybersecurity and data privacy, and then partnerships and multi-level government support. So first off, with the admin transitions, we've conducted major reviews of our strategic directions. In the past year, I know that in your book, this actually includes doing away with the CHIP framework. Now we are actually working on finalizing our National Development ICT plan or agenda. And so, of course, we are recalibrating our thrusts against our digital landscape and boosting our countryside development efforts. So we have listed down some of the legal frameworks and roadmaps we follow as guides for our overall strategic goals. So we know that, can we go to the next slide? So we know that the digital economy is indeed a major contributor to the national economy, as evidenced by the report. It is, of course, industry figures in 2022 in the right section of the slide. The IT-BPM sector, because that's also part of the sectors that we've been actually taking care of for more than a decade already, because it's also a major mandate, ICT industry development mandate of the ICT. So the IT-BPM industry recorded 1.6 trillion pesos in market value or revenue, and the creative economy was at $32.5 billion in 2022. So from 2020 to 2022, also the startup ecosystem, because this is also part of the sector, because of course with the passage of the Innovative Startup Act, the DICT is one of 3 major agencies in terms of leading the implementation of one Philippine startup development ecosystem. So So as you can see, from 2020 to 2022, the startup ecosystem was at $3.6 billion US dollars. Meanwhile, the global freelancing platform, because it was also mentioned, the market size was valued at 4.39 billion in 2022 and expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 16.5% from 2023 to 2030. So we believe that while these great figures, much talent and revenues are still accounted for, and we hope to advance and harmonize these vis-a-vis the Philippine Development Plan 2028. So to enable these industries to accelerate at such rates, we know that access, connectivity, and the digital infrastructure are our first concerns. We know, we'd like to share with you that massive improvements have definitely been made in terms of our digital connectivity, expansion of telco and network providers, and of course, the emergence of new platforms. So while many of the existing digital programs were cited in the book, the DICT has had a lot of updates in recent years, and that we are happy to share with you. So true to the administration's promise, of course, universal connectivity is top priority so that no citizen is left behind. So this is the good news that we'd like to share with you, that the Philippines is now 40th in the global rankings and number 4 actually in Southeast Asia for fixed broadband speed. So in just a year, we actually almost doubled the fixed broadband speed from 49.48 Mbps in 2021 to 88.13 Mbps in November 2022, based on the Ookla Speed Test Global Index report released last January 2023. So we'd like to say that somehow we're actually improving in terms of our digital infrastructure and connectivity. So as you can see, so notice on the bottom of the left corner of the slide, these are some of the key players in our telco industry that have been continuously providing competitive internet service to the Filipino people. And we're happy that, of course, Starlink of SpaceX has been available and has been providing connectivity in the country, in the different parts of the countryside since February 2023. And currently, out of the 116 million population in the country, 85.16 million Filipinos are internet users. So that translates to 73% internet penetration. And part of the book, you mentioned about our national broadband program, and the DICT, we have already provided high-speed broadband connection to 981 government offices in 13 provinces of August last year. And we are also prioritizing providing and improving internet connectivity in the countryside, especially in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas, or we call GDAS, through the Free Wi-Fi for All program, as you've mentioned also, particularly the law in the book. So there are more than 4,000 live sites now. We're activated in 17 regions, in 75 provinces, and the National Capital Region. So by the end of the year, the DICT aims to put up 15,384 operational free Wi-Fi sites in the country by the end of this year. And please take note that by 2025, 100,000 free Wi-Fi sites are expected to be operational. So we also have a program called GovNet, so which aims to help address the basic needs of government, of course, in terms of digital transformation in government, for transparency, efficiency, and effective governance through ICT and digitalizing governance services. To date, over 1,000 government offices and agencies in 13 provinces in 13 different regions are now connected through the GovNet project, of which 981 are now online. So for 2023, we hope to have additional 3 GovNet sites will be established within 234 agencies to be connected. The book also raised major concerns on the lack of integration and interoperability in the local and national government levels, pervasive data privacy and cybersecurity issues, and the low digital literacy among Filipinos. Major global indexes have also measured the Philippines in decline in terms of e-governance ranking over recent years. And of course, this is the case with the e-government development Index or EGDI, where we went from being 75th in 2016, 71st in 2018, 77 in 2020 to 89 in 2022. Well, this is sad, no? But yeah, we'll have good news later. So as for the Salons Services Globalization Index, so we have top 50 digital, that's the top 50 digital nations list. We're in the Philippines ranked 18 in 2021 from being second in 2018 and fifth in 2019 and 2020. So of course we have to improve in this actually in this globalization index. So for 2020 through 2022 through though the Salons Global Business Innovation Sustainability Index reported that we advanced as 15th in the top 50 digital nations list. So this is great news for us and our partners, aiming to improve the business and service landscape in the country and the policies that govern these systems. So this is the good news because we have our DICT's e-government priority projects, the eGov Super App. So because of the celebration of National ICT Month during our kickoff in Malacanang, we also launched the eGov Super App. So this is the Philippines' first one-stop shop platform for local and national government services that actually streamlines processes and transactions. As part of the eGov group, that part of course, a major mandate of the ICT. So we also have an ELGU. It's an online one-stop shop that gives a variety of LGU system automation. So we work closely with the LGUs. Then we have the eGov Cloud, which actually promotes cloud computing as the preferred technology for government administration and the delivery of government services. And I know some of you, or most of you have used this, the e-travel platform. This is a Philippine one-stop electronic travel declaration system. And then we also have the eGov Pay, which simplifies payments, processing, reduces costs, improves data management, enhances customer experience, reconciles transactions, and supports a wide range of payment methods. And then we have this e-report or people's feedback mechanism, which allows citizens to file complaints or reports so that the government can improve its government service delivery. So as I mentioned, the DICT, we take pride in the recent launch of the eGov Super App as part of our National ICT Month kickoff. So this innovation, we'll say, is really groundbreaking for us because this app collates all national and local government services, because part of the book says that, yes, the lack of coordination among government agencies, and we're happy that we have this app, which actually collates all national and local government services, such as electronic payments, tourism, and trade and commerce in just one single app. So this actually hopes to streamline processes and transactions to bring a total ease of doing business to all without disrupting any existing services that national and local governments are already implementing. So it's available both in iOS and Android. So the eGov Super App is already available. You may try to download this app, and it's already, you can actually use it already. And of course, we're very excited because it has already been rolled out and you can actually use this. Everyone can use this across the country. So that's the good news. The book highlighted also the need for better digital literacy for the citizens to be equipped against cyber attacks and threats. So rest assured that this is also the priority for the ICT. In fact, we have several projects that I will discuss in the next few slides, but I think I only have 5 minutes. So first is a cybersecurity management system, which aims to provide a centralized monitoring platform that will actually enhance the country's ability to act on threats before, during, and after cyber attacks. And of course, it's also the conduct of cybersecurity awareness and information campaigns to teach Filipinos the basics of cybersecurity. And then we also have the draft National Cybersecurity Plan 2023 to 2028, which is just published last month for public comments. And among the priorities of the latest plan is the adoption of internationally recognized policies and frameworks to improve the country's response to cybersecurity risks and attacks. Okay, so this is the full list of the services that the agency provides in terms of cybersecurity. I won't go through each one because I know I don't have time. So can we go to the next slide? We also affirm that general skills upgrading is also of prime importance. So if anything, quality education, continuous upskilling and reskilling propel us to take advantage of opportunities, to create opportunities as well for others. And in the book, mentioned about the digital jobs program that we've been implementing, particularly for the online freelancing. And we also have this program called Spark, which aims to upskill ICT and ICT-enabled work service, ICT-enabled service workers to enable local companies to become more competitive in the global market. So courses like business, general skills, animation, medical coding and training. So those are the trainings that we've been providing. We also are working actually currently on the development of the Philippine Skills Framework. In the book, this was also mentioned there, and it's the DICT that takes the lead in the development of skills framework for the following sectors. Number one, analytics and AI, software development, contact center, and BPO, health information management, and global in-house center. So it's actually this program is being handled by our bureau. So again, I'm part of the ICT Industry Development Bureau with the mandate of ICT Industry Development and Countryside Development of DICT. So we have different programs in terms of supporting the BPO industry, the digital creative economy, the gig economy, emerging technologies such as blockchain and AI, and startups. I have a long list of programs, but sorry, I won't go through each one. But in terms of, because in the book, it's still called there, the Stepping Up the Value Chain program, but it's now called LIFT, or Leveraging the IT BPM Industry and Fostering Local Talents. But in the, that was like 3 years ago when we implemented the Stepping Up the Value Chain program. But basically that one aims to promote careers in the industry and showcasing Filipino talents, particularly creating jobs, and of course, ensuring that we are still the global provider in terms of outsourced services. I will have to share this with you again because we already have launched the roadmap, of course, led by IBPAP, the Umbrella Association of all the BPO companies in the Philippines, the IT BPM Roadmap 2028, and the goal is to be able to generate additional 1.1 million jobs in the next 5 years, or total 2.5 million jobs, direct jobs, and $58.9 billion revenue, and contribution to the economy is 8.9% to the GDP. And there are actually different acceleration levers, but I won't go through each one. And then, of course, you mentioned about the Next Wave Cities program. Now we have now 42 cities outside of Metro Manila that are employing almost 500,000 jobs in those 42 cities. So we have centers of excellence, Next Wave Cities, and recently launched the digital cities. We have 31 digital cities. And so there. So the goal is to be able to bring IT BPM opportunities to the countryside. Can we go to the Philippine startup ecosystem quick? Okay, so in terms of our support, improving the Philippine startup ecosystem, there's been evident progress since 2020. So there are now at least 1,000 startups, not including those that are yet to be mapped and accounted for by the 3 agencies, DTI, USC, and the ICT. And the recently released Startup Blink report, this May 30, the country ranked in the global startup ecosystem index. So the Philippines ranked number 59, while we maintain number 6 among the Asian countries. So we're glad that the Philippines still has 5 cities that actually part of the top 1,000 cities worldwide. So together, of course, with DTI and the USC, we've been implementing that because of the mandate under the Innovative Startup Law. Okay, this is now the report of another global startup organization. So the Philippines, the Startup Genome, where the Philippines ecosystem value has continuously grown in value, is now currently $3.5 billion. So there, and in the chapter of the book also, he discussed how FinTech and e-commerce have been dominating the Philippine digital economy since the pandemic. Can we go to the next slide? I won't go through each one, but basically this is the very big program of DICT, the Digital Startup Development and Acceleration Program, because I know you've mentioned about the startup support. So in terms of providing grant fund, in terms of providing acceleration program, not only here in Metro Manila, but in the countryside, in terms of mapping our local startup ecosystem in different regions. So the things that we've been doing in partnership with the startup ecosystem. I won't go through the different initiatives there, components. So basically the goal is to be able to have more successful startups to increase our ranking in the global startup ecosystem ranking and index. And so we have different 2023 targets for this year, of course, but I won't go through each one. And maybe you can go to the next slide. This is also about supporting our digital creatives. So we have a program called EPIC. It's about empowering, promoting, and invigorating the digital creative industry program. So the goal is to be able to develop our own local content, to promote and sustain the competitiveness of our digital industry, and of course, to encourage Filipino creativity. So there, we're also part, and we know that there's this act called PISIDA, the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act, that the DTI is leading, and DICT is part of that. So we've been also implementing different programs to support the digital creative industry or the creative industry. So another one, we are also supporting, of course, the online freelancing industry. In fact, the Philippines was included in the top 10 fastest growing freelancing countries in the 2019 Global Gig Economy Index report. The Philippines, so it was revealed that we have 35% growth. We ranked number 6 out of the top 10 countries in the world in terms of year-on-year revenue growth in the Global Gig Economy Index. So yes, we are implementing a separate program for that to make sure that we have jobs for Filipinos wherever they are in the country. Okay, so these are the plans. I won't go through each one. So I think I would just, can you go to the next slide? What we would like to highlight, because I understand that one of the recommendations really in the book is to, of course, strengthen the linkages and collaboration among government, private sector, and the academe. So as you can see, these are the different organizations that we've been working with, collaborating with, and we recognize that we know that despite this significant strides, there are still systemic limitations in the synergies of the public and private sector, and we are here to assure you that we are actually your ally, of course. We've been working with these government organizations, private sector, academe, and so there. So thank you so much. Sorry, I don't have time, but we'd like to highlight and thank our industry partners for continuously working with us. And to sum it up, I would like to emphasize the following points. First, the Philippine digital economy is rapidly progressing. This is manifested by how fast the country's ICT sectors, industries, and ecosystem cope with the global economy's advancements. And in relation to this, the second point is to realize the importance of monitoring and evaluation, one of which is through this publications case study. So thank you for this and congratulations to PIDS. So this allows national government agencies, policymakers, and innovation leaders to benchmark the industry, and through collaborative efforts, improving feedback mechanisms to discover the strengths and challenges of the Philippine digital economy will actually lead us to proper assessments of impact, effectiveness, and sustainability of the different programs and interventions. So with this, we can evaluate if the programs or projects really trickle down to the benefit to and benefit the communities. And to successfully do this, we must also realize the importance of ensuring that there are enough countryside efforts really to provide holistic and large-scale digital transformation. So through this book, we have come to realize that there are a lot of ongoing initiatives that are being offered by the government, the local and the private sector. However, its success and influence still boils down to how vigorous we are in advocating and promoting such interventions. After all, what we aim to achieve is for Filipinos to be equipped with information skills, positive attitude, and competitive advantage who can achieve optimum developments for a digital economy. So again, sorry, thank you so much to PIDS and IDRC for coming up with this publication. This will surely help the academe, the industry, the government understand the landscape of our digital economy, and we are confident that with the support of the whole society, our country can increasingly progress in our digital transformation agenda. So maraming salamat po for inviting DIC to be part of this initiative.
Thank you very much, Director Emmy, for sharing your insights and updates from the ICT. So now let us hear from our second discussant. Attorney Mary Grace L. Riguer-Teodosio is the Deputy Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies, or ILS, of the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE. She holds a bachelor's degree in organizational communication and is a member of the Philippine Bar. She has produced research related to trade and employment and green jobs. She was previously designated as Director of the DOLE National Capital Region Field Office, during which she led the implementation of labor and employment programs such as inspection, conciliation and mediation, labor education, emergency employment, and livelihood assistance. So friends, let us all welcome Attorney Grace Riguer-Teodosio. Attorney Grace, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mai, and thank you also to Dr. Orbeta and the PIDS family for inviting the Institute for Labor Studies. I'm representing my Executive Director, Jeanette Ana, who is attending another meeting. And I'd like to acknowledge also the presence of my Dr. Arjan de Haan, and as well as the members of the panel of reactors, of course, Director Delfin, and as well as Mr. Lito Villanueva. We consider your invitation, the PIDS invitation, as an acknowledgement of the importance of labor and employment in the digital or in economic development, including development of the digital economy. And we congratulate and thank the authors and editors of the book, especially Dr. Connie Dacuycuy and Ramonette Serafica, for presenting data, initiatives, actions, programs, policies, and analyzing such on the topic of the digital economy. Considering that the digitalization is becoming prominent in business processes and models, and these affect also the labor market and workers. My comments later will highlight or focus on what we do at the Institute as well as the Department of Labor and Employment in terms of ensuring that decent work outcomes are still achieved in the digital economy. So next slide, just to introduce our organizations. We are the Institute for Labor Studies. Again, we are the policy research arm. We are an attached agency of the Department of Labor and Employment, and we are mandated to conduct research on all areas of labor and employment, labor administration. And our work is guided by the principles of decent work, which include employment creation, social protection, social dialogue, and of course, protection of rights at work. For the next slide, next slide, can you proceed further? So since 2019, we've been doing research dealing with the issue or dealing with the topic on digital economy. So we started in 2019. So that was pre-pandemic. At that time, the Telecommuting Act was recently passed. So we did the research on platform work, and then we expanded further to include topics such as gig economy, telecommuting, freelance work. We made analysis of cases in other jurisdictions, meaning in other countries. We made also we did surveys of riders, of workers who are telecommuting, as well as companies engaging workers who were under telecommuting arrangements. We found out our findings mostly showed that many of our workers are actually now engaged in platform work, many of which are delivery riders. Some are doing performing micro tasks such as encoding and under contracts with web-based platforms, and there are issues that I will be highlighting later. So next slide. Just to enrich the discussion on the digital economy, I'd like to give a context of what we do at the Institute and Department of Labor and Employment. So where are we coming from when we enhance or review policies or develop policies, as well as enhance or develop programs for digital for workers engaged in digital work. So of course, next slide. We have to adhere to the principles and also minimum guarantees as required under our current constitution. Also, the state is required to protect all workers wherever they are, even if they are overseas or whatever nature of work they are performing. The state is also required to guarantee just and humane conditions of work and also security of tenure. Next slide. For the next slide, we would like to emphasize that the constitutional guarantees are being implemented under current legal framework, no legal setup, for most of which is the labor code, and which is the basis of the Department of Labor, the Labor and Employment's mandate in terms of protecting the rights and also the well-being of all workers, including workers in the digital economy. So the labor code, for those who are not familiar, provides the minimum benefits and rights and conditions that must be complied with for employees and other types of workers. So there are labor standards as well as occupational standards for employees and workers. And also, the labor code provides for the rules or laws on contracting. Let me emphasize that contracting is not prohibited in the labor code. What the labor code states is that it gives power to the Secretary of Labor and Employment to restrict or prohibit contracting, including labor-only contracting. So what we mean by labor-only contracting is that there is a contractor that supplies worker to another, and that contractor does not have substantial capital or investments, and that the workers being deployed are performing work directly related to the principal business of the employer. The labor code also provides that regular employees cannot easily be terminated. They can only be terminated on just grounds or authorized grounds or because of communicable or incurable disease. So security of tenure, as guaranteed by the Constitution, is being enforced or implemented under the labor code. So the Department of Labor and Employment enforces labor laws and rules and regulations and makes sure that workers are protected in terms of labor standards and other benefits and rights under the labor code through the exercise of the visitorial and enforcement powers of the Secretary of Labor and Employment, meaning that the secretary or authorized representatives, meaning the inspectors, can have access to the records and the premises of employers and establishments. That's how we enforce labor laws in our jurisdiction. So next slide. For the next slide, can we proceed further? Miss Mai. I guess 2 slides after. In 2021, just to clarify some of the issues that have been arising at the time regarding the status of employment or work arrangement of riders, the Department of Labor and Employment came up with Labor Advisory Number 14, series of 2021, on work conditions of delivery riders in food delivery and courier services. So it reiterated the 3 tests by which we can determine whether or not there is an employee-employer relationship existing between the platform or the courier or delivery services and the riders or the workers. There are existing tests that have been highlighted in this labor advisory: the fourfold test, economic reality test, and the independent contractor test. In this labor advisory, there are 2 scenarios that were also highlighted. One is where applying the test, the 3 tests, the scenario is that the employees or the workers will be deemed employees of the platform or the food delivery or courier services, in which case they will be entitled to the minimum benefits or rights under the labor code or other laws. If they are not deemed employees applying the test, then the terms and conditions of engagements will be governed by the contract between them and the platform or their company, the courier or the food delivery, the company or services. Next slide, please. So these are the minimum guarantees for those who will be deemed employees under the labor code. You can read on it, or maybe I can expound later if you still want me to, but we can proceed to other provisions of this advisory. So all dispute can also be resolved through conciliation, mediation, or other modes. I left out the release of the new implementing rules and regulations of the Telecommuting Act, where the Department of Labor and Employment clarified some provisions, including those on telecommuting program, what are the contents of the program or the agreement between the telecommuter or the employee and the company. And in this new IRR, or the implementing rules and regulations of the Telecommuting Act, the department clarified the job functions or the entitlements of employees that they may agree on in the contract, in the telecommuting agreement. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, just to give you an update, in 2022, so that's last year, no, the Supreme Court released its decision on the case of Lazada versus 5 of its delivery riders. So in this case, the Supreme Court had the occasion to describe the business model of Lazada. Can we proceed to the other slide, to the next slide? So let me just read the provision, the portion of that decision. Next slide, please. So the Supreme Court said that in carrying out their business, referring to Lazada, they are not merely a platform where parties can transact. They also offer the delivery of items from the sellers to the buyers. The delivery eases the transaction between the sellers and buyers and is an integral part of the respondent Lazada's business. So because delivery is part of Lazada's business model, the delivery riders were declared employees of Lazada, and they were declared not as independent working for Lazada, not as independent contractors. As such, they are entitled to the guarantees or rights, and also under the labor code, including security of tenure, and they were declared illegally dismissed. The lesson, or we want to emphasize that platform work or digital work does not necessarily entail lack of employee-employer relationship. It will be based on the varied circumstances or nature of work, or the contract or the engagement between the employer or the platform or the digital employer and the workers. And we can apply the test to determine whether or not there exists an employee-employer relationship to apply the provisions of the labor code. There may or may not be an employee-employer relationship. So we have to look at the circumstances. Next slide, please. Just to point out some of the issues that we have called or we have gathered through our experience as a research institute based on our papers and studies and surveys, and of course, based on conversations with our stakeholders. So the evolving nature of work arrangement in the digital economy makes it an imperative to review and enhance policies toward better protection of rights of workers. We recognize also that there are pending bills in the Congress and Senate as to looking at the employment status or defining the status of engagement or nature of work of freelancers, gig workers, platform workers, and the Department of Labor and Employment has been actively participating in the legislative work toward enhancing or reviewing policies and laws for better protection of workers. The need to review or enhance policies and laws is coupled with the need to enhance also the administrative machinery and systems and programs in order for us to extend further our services of protection and enforcement of rights and labor laws and compliance for workers. Just to point out, some of the engagements or work arrangements are done in a cross-border way. So meaning the employers can exist somewhere or outside the Philippine jurisdiction, and the workers can work within our jurisdiction. In that case, there might be challenges in terms of enforcing occupational safety, health and safety standards, or even doing inspection, undertaking inspection, or enforcing labor standards and labor laws. Also, there might be some challenges whenever there are complaints in terms of dispute resolution. So there are times that no employer can be invited to attend hearings in order for conciliation and mediation to progress or to proceed, because sometimes there's no physical presence in the Philippines, or even if there's physical presence, or even if there is a company, they have sometimes there are no representatives here in the Philippines. And of course, with the emergence of different technologies, advanced technologies, including AI, including machine learning, we are being confronted with issues of job displacement, the risk of job displacement of workers by machines. So there is a need to enhance skills, upskills, ensure upskilling among workers, ensure their employability through LMI, employment facilitation, and of course, making sure that they have the right skills needed for them to be able to adapt to the new requirements of a digital world of work. Next slide, please. So for the ways forward, the Department of Labor has been extending services via online mechanisms already, but in the future, we'd like to further improve our digital infrastructure and services through online systems and mechanisms in order to improve access to our services. But for this more substantive part of our work, of course, our priorities will be on upskilling, on training, skills development, because TESDA is still with us, the Department of Labor and Employment. And we will also improve on the delivery of labor and employment education through e-campuses, through e-learning modes, and we will also deal with looking at how to improve the access of workers engaged in online work or virtual work in terms of access to social protection, if not social security, because that is the mandate of another agency, SSS and other agencies. But as to social protection, including active labor market programs and other emergency employment or other social protection that are covered in our programs, then we will enhance such so that we can better serve those who are engaged in precarious work or informal arrangements within the digital world of work. And so we will improve our LMI in order to address labor market mismatches in the digital world of work. So improve the access to better information between employers and workers in order to close the gap and close mismatches, address mismatches between the two actors in the labor market. And of course, on our part, the Institute for Labor Studies, we're continuing to do research work on this topic, no? So there are some papers are in the pipeline. We are doing research on digital labor market intermediaries, and next year we'll do research on AI and the labor market, and we would explore some alternative or enhancement in administrative machineries in order for us to better serve workers in the gig economy. And lastly, also, we are the current chairperson of the ASEAN Labor Ministers meeting, and under our chairpersonship or under our term as chairperson, we will focus on many things, including improving skills and closing the digital divide so that workers can contribute or participate better and gain more from the digitalization of business processes and models. So that would be all. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you very much, Attorney Grace, for sharing your insight and also updates from Dole. It's especially interesting to note the Supreme Court decision on DP versus Lazada. Because usually people would assume na walang employee-employer relationship sa online platform. And as you said, no, context-based ito. And we're happy to know about that. So thank you very much again, Attorney Grace. So now our next discussant is Mr. Lito Villanueva. So Mr. Villanueva is the Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation and Inclusion Officer of Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, or RCBC. Concurrently, he is the Chief Digital Transformation Advisor for the Yuchenko Group of Companies. He is also the founding chairperson of FinTech Alliance.ph, a national organization of startups and unicorns. Mr. Villanueva was also elected global chairperson of the South Africa-based Alliance of Digital Finance Association. He is also a trustee of the Philippine Blockchain Council and advisory board member of the ASEAN Innovation Business Platform. Mr. Villanueva earned 2 graduate degrees and finished the Digital Transformation by Design Cambridge Intellect Leadership Program in 2019 at the University of Cambridge in UK. So today, we will hear from Mr. Villanueva via recorded message, but later, his representative, Mr. Michael Christopher Cruz, the Vice President and Head of Usage and Strategic Businesses of RCBC, will be joining us for the open forum. So for now, let us hear from Mr. Villanueva. Let us all give him a virtual round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS, especially to President Aniceto Orbeta Jr. for giving me this opportunity to join you all today, albeit virtually. First of all, I would like to offer my heartfelt congratulations on today's book launch. It is an honor to mark this momentous feat with PIDS as they officially launch Critical Issues in the Philippine Digital Economy. This book, in my opinion, will be a very valuable tool in our journey toward a sustainable digital economy. We owe its success to the esteemed people behind this book who have lent their time, knowledge, and effort in realizing this achievement. To all of the esteemed industry thought leaders, professionals, students, and educators involved, I offer my utmost gratitude and respect. From what I've gathered, this is a well-written plethora of on-the-ground insights, critical observations, clear-cut analysis, and subsequently ways and opportunities we can move forward for the betterment of our nation and its economy. As a champion for inclusive digital finance, I found myself gravitating towards certain chapters that garnered my particular interest in the matter. These chapters touch on important points which I believe should be highlighted and addressed on a larger scale to continue making significant strides towards digital inclusion for all. The chapter Navigating the FinTech Industry Landscape, Seizing Opportunities and Addressing Weaknesses by Francis Mark A. Kimba, Mark Anthony Barral, and Jean Clarice Carlos makes it clear that online is flourishing and digital is thriving. E-commerce platforms, e-wallets, and digital banks have grown in volume and usage, adding unparalleled value and convenience to our everyday lives. Digital payment transactions were seen to significantly rise during the pandemic as brick-and-mortar banking was put to a halt and offline transactions were forced to go online. The digital economy has seen massive improvements such as interoperable financial transactions and the ability for Filipinos to shop, pay bills, or send money conveniently through their smartphones in just a tap and from anywhere, anytime. Filipinos from different regions can now receive remittances, avail of insurance, loans, and many more. In the fintech industry landscape, this is us seizing the opportunity and potential of digital. These digital financial products allow us to reach more unbanked Filipinos, which is ultimately the main purpose of fintech leaders. And of course, thanks to the BSP's digital transformation roadmap, where we are very positive to meet its twin goals this year. That would be converting at least 50% of retail financial transactions to digital and onboarding at least 70% of adult Filipinos to have transactional accounts. In the same chapter, there is also a weakness we cannot forget. With the growth of digital, there is also the rise of cyber scams and threats due to lack of education and awareness. This is related to the observation that information dissemination of programs needs to be improved. As touched on in the chapter, Understanding Digital Platforms, Opportunities, Risks, and Government Responses by Ramonette, Serafica, and Quincel Oren. When promoting digital financial products, one of our main struggles is reaching the far-flung Filipinos in geographically disadvantaged communities. Consumer education and financial awareness remain to be our crux, and of course, without this, progress is difficult. Bayudan, Dacuycuy, and Sinsay relay the importance of access to information, as this mitigates vulnerabilities of shocks. This way, Filipinos can be more informed and aware before making any business decisions. This will help them achieve financial empowerment. And in Tabuga and Tabaero, they said that individuals are unaware that financial transactions can be conducted online And Peña and Yao also write that many entrepreneurs are unaware of efforts like the government-led COVID-19 assistance. With the increasing adoption of FinTech applications and the digitalization of finance industry, a larger portion of the Filipino population is joining a financially inclusive economy. However, the lack of financial awareness and literacy poses the most dangerous implications, albeit something that we can collectively address. With the great rewards of digitalization come great risks, but these are risks that we can prevent and counter. Remember, our strongest weapon is education. Recognizing the urgent need to address the issue at hand, the Philippines' first and largest FinTech and Digital Association of Startups and Unicorns, FinTech Alliance.ph, has recently launched a nationwide industry-led multi-stakeholder cybersecurity awareness and education campaign under the hashtag Wag Magpaloko, Maging Scam Alerto. Our primary objective is to educate millions of Filipino smartphone and online users on the threats posed by phishing scams. By fostering a culture of vigilance and alertness, we aim to empower individuals to protect themselves in the digital landscape. FinTech Alliance.ph is spearheading the campaign in collaboration with key national government agencies such as the BSP, NBI, PNP, AMLC, SEC, IC, DICT, NTC, mobile network operators, civil society, media, and consumer groups. By uniting stakeholders from various sectors in an industry-led campaign against cybercrime, we can effectively champion our stance on this matter and ensure the overall security of our digital landscape. It is imperative that the policy environment to support digital economy growth continues to be strengthened. In the chapter Regulatory Reforms and the Development of the Philippine Digital Economy by Aiken Larissa Serzo, I totally agree that working hand in hand with the government is critical in seeing our financial inclusion programs and initiatives through. The administration has introduced different plans and programs to foster digital transformation and improve digital infrastructure, like Broadband ng Masa, Open Access in Internet Services Act, and the BSP's Digital Payments Transformation Roadmap, which aims to bank more Filipinos into the formal financial system. Critical issues in the Philippine digital economy does a great job of highlighting what needs to be done. Alongside, it also gives us hope, for what's to come. Digital finance will continue to grow in the Philippines, especially with the help of continued partnerships and innovative collaborations among industry players. And since the FinTech Alliance.ph founding in 2017, we have been working hand in hand with the government and other key industry leaders to promote inclusive digital finance. It is inspiring to see the collective efforts that made this book come to life. It truly is a testament to the fact that the key to fostering inclusive digital finance is having a comprehensive multi-sectoral national strategy and a coordination framework, all bound by one sole purpose, and that is providing every Filipino equal access to participate in today's digital economy. Once again, thank you to the PIDS for having me here to celebrate with you, and congratulations to all the brilliant minds behind the making of critical issues in the Philippine digital economy. I am ecstatic to see the lengths and heights this notable book will go. Again, thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Villanueva, for sharing your reaction and hopes for our digital economy as part of the private sector. So before we begin the open forum, I would like to invite all our speakers, volume editors, and authors, kindly turn on your video for a quick photo opportunity to document this momentous event. So We'd also like to invite Mr. Villanueva's representative, Mr. Michael Christopher Cruz, Vice President and Head of Usage and Strategic Businesses, to please join the photo op. And our teammate, Sasa, will lead us for this segment. Sasa?
Okay, camera ready. 1, 2, 3. One more for the second page. Hold on. Okay, for the second page, open your camera, please. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Mai.
Thank you very much, Sasa. And thank you also to our discussant for sharing their insights this afternoon. So before we begin our photo op, I'd like to just remind our audience, those who are in Zoom may send their questions or insights by using that Q&A function by clicking the Q&A button at the lower part of your screen. Meanwhile, those who are watching us on Facebook via Facebook Live can send their questions via the comment section. So we're eager to hear from you. We'd like to know what your questions and insights are after hearing from our volume editors and discussants, and especially now that we have our chapter authors here to answer your questions. So to kick off our our open forum, our first question is actually from for attorney Riguer-Teodosio of ILS. And this question was actually answered in the via chat, but we'd like to hear from you again. This is from Gabriel Domingo of the Philippine Competition Commission, and he asked, are gig workers covered by the labor code of DOLE? Attorney Grace?
Hi, Mai and Gabriel. No. So as you may note from the presentation, the labor advisory, we clarified how to determine whether or not there is an employee-employer relationship between the company or the worker. So whether in the gig economy, as freelancer or independent contractor, because sometimes one may be considered as freelancer and the contract will stipulate that one is a freelancer, but the nature of work does not say so. So we have to look at the circumstances and the situation and how to determine. You need to apply some tests. So the labor advisory provided some of the tests that you can apply in order to determine whether a freelancer is really an employee or not, or a gig worker is really an employee or not, or a rider is an employee or not. In the case of Lazada, the Supreme Court held they are employees because actually the work was described in that decision. They pick up the items from the sellers and then they deliver to the warehouses, and the Lazada exercise some controls over the performance of work or the means and methods of work of the rider. So there is no one size fits all rule. No, you need to test. You need to determine on a case-to-case basis. So we do not want to presume that all gig workers are not employees. So we need to be more circumspect in looking at the situation of the workers, whether they are not employees, whether or not they are employees. Kasi pag employees yan, labor code provisions will apply. If they are not employees, then the stipulations of the contracts. If they're really independent contractors or employees of an agency, yung di ba yung may trilateral, yung may agency na outsource lang sila, then iba yung nature of work, na iba yung arrangement. So hindi siya clear cut. It really is context based, sabi nga ni Mai.
Thank you, Attorney Grace. So ayan, Gabriel. So
just to emphasize din, not all riders of Lazada should be deemed employees na. This is only the case only applies to the 5 workers in that decision.
Okay, so that also answers the other question asking if the ride share, yung mga riders ay employees. As for Lazada, based on the Supreme Court decision, it's a yes. But for others, tama no, Attorney Grace, You
The
need to look
five
at the
workers only,
circumstances.
for the 5 workers, because they are the ones covered by the decision, no?
Thank you
Kasi
for that,
iba-iba din
Atty.
yung workers ng different delivery services. They have different kinds of workers working at different locations of the company. So, but for the case, the 5 delivery riders were declared as employees, were deemed employees.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Attorney Grace. So again, Gabriel, the answer is it's based on the circumstances. So hindi siya sweeping answer para sa ating mga gig workers. Okay, so let's move on and ask an interesting question, which was also answered via chat. And this is from Jessica Cantos from Action for Economic Reform, or AER. So she asked, does the book dwell on the digitalization efforts in agriculture? The Registry System for Basic Sectors in Agriculture, or RSBSA, is a national platform but is so underutilized. No wonder many LGUs are developing their own data for gathering systems for agriculture. So what are the steps to make agri-data more interoperable? So who would like to answer this?
Hi, Mai. This is Monette.
Hi, Ma'am Monette.
Hi. So, unfortunately, except for a very brief discussion in the second chapter on digital platforms, where we talk about examples of applications in e-commerce business models in agriculture in other countries, we did not in this book we do not have a chapter on agriculture specifically, but I think that would be an excellent future research. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manette. I remember also during the presentation of Director Emmy that she was sharing all these various initiatives from the government side. So is there also anything that you would like to share related to this, Director Emmy?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Mai. Yes, actually, as I mentioned earlier, we launched the eGov Super App. This actually consolidates the different application services of different government agencies into one single app. So it's like single sign-on. I'm not sure if we already have an MOU with the Department of Agriculture, but basically that's the goal, for us to be able to have to partner with all government agencies so that all their applications and services will be just in that one app. Because I think yun yung ano kanina ni Ms. Jessica, yung digitalization efforts, kumbaga hindi kanya-kanya, hindi siya silos. So that's basically the role now and the goal of our group called the e-government group, headed by one of our USECs here. In fact, so we already have different partnerships with several government agencies. I'm not just sure if we already have an MOA with the Department of Agriculture, but basically that's really the goal, no? To consolidate both national platforms and even the different platforms of LGUs, because in that particular app, meron din siya eGov LGUs doon, where LGUs can also include that in that particular app. But yes, we're getting there to be able to have one really parang whole of government digitalization efforts.
So is it correct to say, Director Emmy, that the goal really is to have all these services housed under eGov app?
Yes.
So kumbaga parang work in progress ka.
Yes, because that's actually the directive of the President to the ICT, that we have to consolidate all government ICT related initiatives in just one single app. That's why we launched the eGov Super App. There are several agencies already that are part there, like for example, the Department of Tourism in terms of the e-travel. Before we used to have a separate, now it's part of that. So kumbaga, this is work in progress. Every government agency that we partner with, ina-add lang doon sa different services in that single app.
Okay, thank you for that, Director Emmy. So we have another question here. And this is an anonymous question. The question is, women's access to ICT and overall relationship with technology impacts their participation in e-commerce. Has PIDS looked into whether and how gender disparities are recognized in national ICT development plans and roadmaps? We would also like to hear from the ICT. So before we go to the ICT, I remember that there's a chapter in the book about the e-commerce adoption of women-led MSME. So could we hear from one of the chapter authors to share the findings in that study? May we hear from Mr. Katiba?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Go
Hi,
ahead.
yeah. Thank you very much for that question, Ms. Maylee. Just to share with you the general findings of the paper, we basically asked women-led micro, small, medium-sized enterprises operating within Metro Manila and those who have adopted e-commerce or use e-commerce or digital platforms to further their operations. And we found positive results in terms of several areas. For example, process enhancement, in terms of customer base, in terms of their income, in terms of their profit. So they're very satisfied in terms of the use of e-commerce for their operation. We also asked them several questions pertaining to their interest in participating in cross-border e-commerce trade. And many of them said, yes, you are interested, but we have problems in terms of knowledge, of information regarding government programs supporting women-led MSMEs and e-commerce trade. So in our recommendations, we of course identified the need to collect necessary data to create a more evidence-based solution, come up with evidence-based solutions to address this issue. Second is to intensify awareness raising programs regarding government initiatives and efforts to support women-led MSMEs. And third is, of course, providing capacity building activities so that the transition from offline to online platforms will be easier for women-led MSMEs. Just to note, this was taken in the context of RCEP, the impending ratification of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, and we're very happy to know that it was recently ratified. So, with all of the recommendations and the findings, we're looking forward towards this development because one of the primary motivations of the women-led MSMEs was that they shifted to this platform because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Uh, the COVID-19 pandemic basically accelerated the shift towards digitalization, and this was, of course, heavily catalyzed by the need to gain more money, to gain more profit, to reach more customers nationwide, and to improve convenience in terms of connecting with a variety of customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jose, for sharing insights from the study. I also understand that we also have a chapter about understanding the opportunities and risks in the digital platforms. And I'd like to throw this question to one of the authors, Miss Mimi Oren, because of course when we think about women, we consider that sector not to be homogeneous. So they're also part of the basic sectors of the different sectors. And because of that, syempre yung kanilang access din and opportunities vary. So I was wondering if the study also mentioned or offers insight on that, Ms. Mimi?
Hello.
Hi, Mimi.
So, in the chapter about the policies and initiatives for platform workers, usually we already have the laws involving digital workforce and creative industries were lapsed or passed last year. So this would include platform workers who are involved in creative industries, and also to upgrade their skills so that they can um, provide high value added digital services. And yeah, so this would involve women as well. And in addition, the government has gender and development initiatives, because we have we the government is uh, requiring all the agencies every year to conduct gender and development initiatives.
Okay, thanks for that, Mimi. So now we'd like to go ask Director Emmy again from the ICT to offer some insight on how does the national plans and roadmaps also consider the connectivity for women, given yung varying access and opportunities as well. Does the road plan mention something specific po para sa women's sector, Ma'am Emmy?
Well, actually, we have a very inclusive we have initiatives that are actually inclusive in terms of providing opportunities, not only for women, but I'm talking here of persons with disabilities, out of school youth, senior citizens as well. So yes, we have different programs for them. In terms of inclusivity, for example, because part of our major mandate is countryside development. That's why I mentioned earlier that even our digital cities is really to bring BPO jobs outside of Metro Manila. That's why of the 1.1 million jobs, more than 50% of the target actually should go to the countryside. And in all the different upskilling trainings that we do, these are actually all for women, meaning those marginalized sectors in society. So we have specialized trainings for women. In fact, you mentioned earlier about the e-commerce. So we have a separate, in fact, it was mentioned in the book about the digital jobs PH. So we have special trainings particularly for women. So the goal of this training is for them to be able to actually land jobs as freelancers, because of course our goal is to discourage Filipinos to go abroad to be away from their family. So the goal really of the freelancing, although I know that has been the contention earlier with Dole, the goal really is to provide ICT jobs opportunities to where the people are, regardless if they're in the rural areas, even if they're homes, as well as with their families earning dollars. And we've have different testimonials, especially for women who lost their husbands, women who are single moms, and because they were able to join the training, they're able to get jobs, and they were able to, of course, gain their confidence again, and they're able to send their children to school. So we have a lot of testimonials about this digital jobs. And then we also have Tech for Ed centers, which is actually mentioned in the book. So it's basically a center where everyone can just go to that, where we provide free internet access, free gadgets, laptops, or computers, where they can actually use that either for work, for employment, or for training, basically for digital literacy. So yes, all the initiatives that we've been doing are really inclusive.
Thank you for that, Director Emmy. Now we'd also like to hear from our chapter authors, Mr. Vince and Mr. Pao. Do you also have anything to share regarding this?
Sorry, hello. I'm actually in another meeting right now. I'm so sorry. Please continue na lang with the next chapter author. Thank you.
All right, so we'll just go back to you, Mr. Yao. So for now, let's move on to the next question. So we have here a We have here questions again from Director Emmy. This is from Ivory Galang of PIDS. So she is asking, does the eGov Super App have a corresponding website for those who do not want to transact using their mobile phone but would prefer to use their computer?
Well, actually, this eGov Super App is with another group within the ICT, and I would like to apologize. As far as I know, it's an app. It's an application. But we can actually go back to Miss Ivory, and even actually on the question of Mr. Alexander Matosa, because these are two related questions. Our USEC for eGov is in another event. That's why I also have to apologize. I think I have to step out also because they also need me there. So we are currently doing the National Analytics and AI Summit. But so the question right now, I know that it's just an app. I don't know if there's a website for that, but we'll get back to you, Miss Ivory. And then for the question of Mr. Matosa, ako na nagbasa, Miss Mai. But as to the data, as to the utilization rate, I will also have to check because we just actually launched it. So, but definitely the eGov group will have their data analytics on that. So if we just get maybe through PIDS, we can give the answers when we get back, when we're able to talk to the eGov group. I handle the ICT Industry Development Bureau. So most of the things that, the initiatives that I handle are BPO industry, startup, emerging tech, AI, so creative economy industry. So pasensya na. I cannot directly answer right now yung questions, but we'll get back to them.
Thank you very much for that, Director Emmy. I think mas interested lang talaga yung ating participants to know more about the eGov Super App. So don't worry, our next question naman po will be for Attorney Grace of ILS. So we have a question here from Von Consigna via Facebook. His question is, what policies or regulations are in place or are being lobbied to avoid burdening gig workers with the transaction fees? For example, riders from motorcycle hailing apps do not prefer e-wallet payments because they have to cash out and they have to do it daily since they depend on their they depend on their income from the ride hailing app for their daily expenses. However, the higher the cash out amount, the higher the fee. So has this been raised before in your previous discussions, or are there any plans on addressing this?
That issue has not been touched in any of our research. So mostly the findings involve yung inconsistencies of income or yung difficulty in registration with social security agencies. These are some of the issues that were touched. As to the transaction fee, again, we'd like to go back to the determination of whether or not the labor code provisions can apply to the specific case of the workers. No, kasi if the labor code will apply, then yung mga deductions are also governed by the code. So we need to comply with the rules and the provisions of the law na hindi there are certain deductions only that are allowed under the law and under the labor code and other laws. But if the worker is an independent contractor, then the terms and conditions of the engagement will be determined by the contract between the company and the worker. But we just want to emphasize that we're always looking at ways on how to, of course, protect workers from exploitation and from unjust or inhumane work conditions, and we're always looking at ways on how to improve the the benefits that they can have from opportunities being offered in this digitalized economy. But as to the transaction fee, we have not encountered such. But we'd like to go back to you, and we'd like to talk to others in the department if this issue has been is already being addressed.
Thank you, Attorney Grace. I think this question was raised, and because this is related to what Dr. Connie and Dr. Ramonette presented earlier regarding online sectors that flourish with varying degrees of success, such as the digital payment platform. Because based on my personal knowledge, what happens is when the workers cash out, usually they pay extra 30 pesos per 1,000 pesos ng transaction. And that cost ay kung hindi kayang sagutin ni rider, actually pinapasa siya doon sa customer for deliveries, usually sa online shopping. And also for some ride-hailing apps that use e-wallet, ang nangyayari ay yung payment nila ay allegedly naho-hold for 3 days bago nila makuha yung payment. And I think kaya siya nagiging critical is for our workers who are living hand to mouth. So kumbaga parang meron kang 3 days na nahihintayin para dun sa kita mo, whereas you need the income now. So I think the question would like to drill on that. So again, thank you, Attorney Grace, and we'd like to.
If you have issues and concerns, I mean, if you are, of course, you have, someone who is working under these circumstances, they can always ask for assistance from the Department of Labor and Employment, so they can actually file requests for assistance through the website of the Department of Labor and Employment.
Thank you for that reminder, Attorney Grace. So to our audience, so yun nga, kung meron kayong mga concerns or issues, please do not hesitate to get in touch with the Department of Labor and Employment. Visit them sa website, and our tech team can also share the link sa ating chat or comment section sa Facebook. So thank you for that, Attorney Grace. And so we'd like to move to and ask our next question. So we have one. Let me just see. Director Emmy has also mentioned that she will be getting back to PIDS, and those who are interested to know more about the eGov Super App can contact us so that we can also provide the info for you, like what Mr. Versoza would like to know, which is the utilization rate of the eGov Super App. Okay, so for now, we only have one question left. We encourage our viewers on Facebook and our participants here on Zoom to ask more questions. So this question is from Jessica Cantos, and she would like to know if there's a law that requires evidence-based decision-making and evidence-based decision-making and policy-making at the national and local government levels that can help expedite digitization in the Philippines. Would anyone like to answer this? Our chapter authors maybe have touched on this topic. Ramonette?
Okay, so try. So essentially, I'm not aware of any government, other countries where they link the two. A law on evidence-based decision-making as a vehicle for digitization. Obviously, evidence-based or informed policymaking is ideal, regardless of whether you pursue digitization or not, right? So whether I guess that answers the question of whether I think you need to have one to expedite digitization. As I remember, a few years ago, there was an executive order, I think, on mainstreaming monitoring and evaluation in government. So if, at least for the executive branch, if if that was pursued or implemented, it would help justify actually justify digitization among the other, in addition to the other reasons why we need to need to pursue digitization in government. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramonette, for answering that question. Now let's hear from the private sector. So I'd like to ask Mr. Mikey Cruz, who is the representative of our discussant, Mr. Villanueva from RCBC. Mikey, could you tell us ano ba yung mga nakikita niyong trends naman sa finance and banking sector na that seek to propel yung development ng ating digital sector?
Thank you very much, Mai. Actually, first, I'd like to thank PIDS for this opportunity. I convey Mr. Lito Villanueva's regrets on not being able to come today. And I'd like to say hi rin to Dr. Connie, who was not my professor in university, but was the professor of half my block in university 10 years ago. So the very big changes.
Who? I'm sorry, me?
Yes, yes, Doc. You were the prof in microecon of half my blockmates in college. I was assigned to another section.
Atty?
Sorry?
What school?
Ateneo po.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Prof. Okay, so to answer the question, first I'd like to react to the earlier question. It shouldn't be a problem for the motorcycle riders. 30 pesos is too high as a fee. If they can use the credits in their e-wallets to purchase the goods naman, hindi nila kailangan dapat ilabas yon. Because with QR, with digitization of payments, they don't have to pay those fees anymore. But again, that's a gap that we still need to address. Key trends is that first, a lot of the country is now banked. It used to be a very common problem that banking in the country has been stuck at like the 10 to 20% mark. As of the end of 2022, 56% of the country now have bank or e-wallet accounts. For most of our countrymen, their first account is a digital e-wallet account. And we can probably name one of the two big ones. So that's a real game changer. So digital is no longer optional. Because of the pandemic, a lot of the players had to transform and accept digital payments. And one of our favorite stories here is that just a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, there was no way to transfer funds from one Philippine bank to another. In order to do so, you had to either issue a check or you have to go to one of the branches, withdraw the money, and then deposit to another bank, and then take a picture of the deposit slip. Now it's all mobile and it's all digital. So those are very big changes in our environment. So customer experience and expectations have changed a lot.
Thanks for raising that, Mikey. Actually, that's a good point that before it was really hard, no? Kailangan in person pa talaga mag-transfer ng pera. But so that also points to the digital divide. Paano ba siya ina-address ng multiple stakeholders? And also, of course, it's also a question of access of sino-sino yung mga tao na may access. Of course, the bank. Although I remember that we have the SERPI. So SERPI may makukuha po tayong study done by BSP on expanding yung access ng banking. If I remember correctly, no, from yung physical banks to online banks to microfinancing. So there are multiple efforts being done to improve the access of the Filipinos sa ating mga financial institutions. So thanks again for that, Mikey. So it's now 4:23, and so far we have answered all the questions here on Zoom, and also one question from Facebook. So I guess with that, we can wrap up the discussion. So before we end, we'd like to hear again from our volume editors and discussants for their closing message. So may we start with Dr. Connie and Dr. Ramonette for their closing message. Perhaps let's go with Dr. Monette first.
Okay. Thank you so much for organizing this event. I think my message would be there's no question that we have to embrace digitalization. But of course, we have to make sure that no one is left behind. I think that's the primary consideration for us. So let's try to address all forms of divides, whether it's in terms of connectivity or skill or access to financial capital. Ano ba? Yun, all forms. Even yung behavior, we have to, kunyari takot or whatever, let's try to address all forms of divide so that moving forward, walang maiiwan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Monette. May we also hear from Dr. Connie Dacuycuy for her closing message.
Hi, Mai. Thank you. First, thank you sa mga authors, chapter authors, and of course, thank you to the discussants today for joining us. Actually, sa akin, ang ano talaga is, one, I agree with Monette regarding the idea that no one should be left behind. Sabi ko nga kanina, the lesson is very clear, that you have to be on the right side of the divide in order for you to really harness the opportunities that this ICT brings. So I think, ako kasi, I'm more on the human capital development fund. So I always advocate for upskilling, retooling. So that is something that should always be at the forefront of any discourse, whether we're talking of digitalization or any major development.
Thank you very much, Dr. Connie. Now let's hear from Attorney Grace Riguer-Teodosio from ILS.
Okay, we will do everything within our mandate, meaning the Institute for Labor Studies and Department of Labor and Employment within our mandate to make sure that the workers benefit from any opportunities that the digital economy can offer, and make sure that rights are protected, labor standards are enforced, and of course that the digital economy will be inclusive.
Thank you again, Attorney Grace. And now let's have Michael Cruz, the representative of Mr. Lito Villanueva from RCBC and FinTech Alliance.ph.
Thank you very much again to the PIDS and congratulations. This book is highly invaluable and highly urgent, especially at this time. And really, banking and fintech landscape has changed, and the private sector will be here and always collaborating with the government and other stakeholders to make the digital economy, to advance the digital economy in the Philippines.
Thanks again, Mikey, for joining us today. And we also thank our co-publisher, IDRC, Mr. Arjan de Haan, for making time for our virtual book launch. So we have come to the end of our program. We thank everyone for joining us today. And we're very happy to tell you that you can get copies, a copy of the presentations from the PIDS website under the events section. And we are also pleased to inform you that our newest book, Critical Issues in the Philippine Digital Economy, is now available at the PIDS website. So next slide. Just go to the pids.gov.ph and browse the publications section. So with that, we'd also like to request you to please answer our survey. The link is shown on the screen and in the chat section. So we hope to hear from you so that we can improve our webinar. Okay, so next. Please also follow us on social media. You can see our social media links there, and visit also our website to be updated on our latest announcements and activities. Okay, and we also hope that you can join us at our webinars next month, July 2023. So we have 4 webinars lined up, and 3 of these are co-organized with our partners, and we look forward to seeing you online again. Just visit us at pids.gov.ph to register. Okay. So again, thank you very much for joining us for the virtual book launch of Critical Issues in the Philippine Digital Economy. Again, I'm Lagman from PIDS, and we hope to see you again at our next webinars as we bring you more forward-looking, responsive, and evidence-based policy research. So muli, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat at magandang hapon.